prioritize something that just kind of you can do and make that part of your life. Because if your life is, I get home and I'm exhausted, that's the example you're setting for your children. It's what your children see is going to be a reflection of what they do. And if they see you being active, they're going to do that. So if you want, for me, I want to set Eleanor up for a successful life, being active, set her future children up for a successful life. And it all starts with me.
Hello, everyone. This is Tommy with the Real Training, Better Living podcast. It's been a 2.5 year hiatus. I have my better half co-host with me, Mr. Chris. Chris is he's been with us obviously now for, close to a year and a half. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So we wanted to get the podcast back up and running because a lot has changed in the last 2.5 years since I really have done this podcast, and I wanted to bring Chris in because Chris was really the employee that kind of bought into the new vision and the direction of the gym. And so I think he's got a great lens for kind of understanding the evolution of the gym. And so him and I are just going to be jamming on a few different topics. Want to give a quick shout out to Sacred Stone Studios and Mr. Quincy for making us look good today. If we don't, it's his fault. And if we look impeccable, also his fault. So shout out to him. So Chris, let's jump into it, dude. So I think the big topic I wanted to discuss, just to come out guns a-blazing, because I feel like although I've evolved the business quite a bit and my vision has changed quite a bit, I still think that in our neighborhood, a lot of people still see us as the crazy CrossFit gym. So I kind of wanted to come out with episode 1 and really guns a-blazing, address that head on and talk about kind of our evolution away from CrossFit. So kind of where I wanted to start is, quick background on you. You got into the CrossFit game in what year?
I started in 2011, which is maybe 6 or 8 months before I joined the Navy. So September 2011. I don't know why I remember that date, but back well over a decade ago.
Yeah, and I think the reason why I wanted to start kind of way back when, 2011, 2012, Gym District H has been around since 2012, is because fitness looked a lot different in 2011, 2012 than it does now. And so maybe give the listeners a quick overview of what fitness looked like for you and getting into the game in 2011, 2012. Why did you fall in love with CrossFit, and maybe how's that changed a little bit over time?
Yeah, it's a great question. So 2011 was still probably in some of the more novel years of CrossFit, where it's 6 years past its inception, right? And I had always hated doing the conventional bro split, trying to hit arms and then legs. And I was I just never understood what I was trying to do, why. And then when I was getting ready to join the military, I saw this, and the owner of my last gym, Steve, he was good friends with my cousin, and they were like, hey, you should go to this gym. Or my parents had told me to go to this gym because your cousin knows this guy. And Steve helped me get in tremendously good shape for the military, because the first workout with a Marine Corps recruiter, vomited all over the place. First CrossFit workout, did the same. I was like, okay, I'm in the right space for this. And it got me in probably the best shape of my life for going into the military. And it just set me up for a lot of success, knowing what to do operationally and living in that military space.
Yeah, when District H got started back in 2012, similar, right? We were breaking into a space where, for most people, we're still doing the typical go to a global gym, bodybuilding type stuff. A lot of the women were doing, maybe they got into some boot camps and stuff like that, but no one was really doing let's call it strength and conditioning CrossFit the way we knew it back in 2012.
Definitely.
But now having 12 to 13 years beyond that, experience, just from you being in the game for a while, how has, as a professional coach, how has your own mindset changed since 2011, 2012? Just seeing a lot of people move, a lot of people come in and out of the gym. What's your experience been like?
Well, I think it's very simple. It's just, there is no one size fits all approach. And if you do that as a coach, you're just being negligent. I think we both agree on that. We have talked a ton about clients that were successful with CrossFit, but I have had far more clients that were successful using a more traditional approach, and then adding an additional intensity using it Tabata rows or some sort of cardiovascular intensity. But you just need to take the intensity away and just provide them some stimulus. And from a one-on-one perspective, 2 times a week is super powerful. You don't need to come in 5 days a week, and just kind of tailoring back and stepping out of my own comfort zone of like, I'm going to do CrossFit 5, 6, 7 days a week, and being like, that person doesn't need that. They're starting from ground zero.
Yeah. And so it's interesting, right? Like you and I think we officially got into this. And again, this has been a similar evolution with the gym. Is we used to think that truly was the best solution for everyone. Like, you and I were taught, come in, it's infinitely scalable, the difference between your grandma and Olympic weightlifter is what's the quote? It's by a degree, not by, whatever. Yeah. But I think like over a decade of working with people and seeing people move, like you start to see that idea break down a little bit. And that's really where Dustin and I started going down the road of like, what are we really trying to do with this organization? Are we here to be beholden to the church of CrossFit? Or are we here to impact lives in predictable ways?
Absolutely.
And so that's what's kind of made me pivot in rethinking about vision, mission, core values of the gym, because the vision I have for District H is like, I want it to be kind of like the leading organization when it comes to offensive healthcare, like preventative healthcare, right? Like before people even have to go to the doctor and get sick, they're working with us to solve minor or major issues. And then we get them to that fun place where we get to build capacity and let's see how strong we can get. And maybe we do that high rock, whatever it is, right? But like, I really want us to be at the forefront of that. And in order for us to do that as an organization, I need to create a way to provide opportunity for individuals like yourself. And the only way that can exist is if we're solving very valuable problems for people. It has to go beyond just like, I had fun in class today. It has to be like, no, like you and I have worked with people that are dealing with chronic pain. They're dealing with years of being sedentary. Do you want to speak to that a little bit? Just kind of like your day-to-day coaching life, like how has it changed from when you were back in New Jersey versus here in Houston?
Yeah. I mean, it's a great question, just kind of a great perspective to bring us back to, because going from mostly CrossFit at my last gym, I think I had like 2 or 3 clients that like really needed one-on-one help. Everybody else, they probably could have been fine, but they were just, let me just work with a one-on-one coach. And it taught me a lot about working with just like different levels of fitness, different level athletes, et cetera. As far as my day-to-day goes, like you mentioned, dealing with a lot of people that have been dealing with certain amounts of pain or sedentary lives, and you have to taper back so much intensity and volume, and you just have to find minimum effective dose. Like how little can we do where you're seeing progress but not being completely debilitated? And we put out a piece on Instagram a couple weeks ago about Brad Robbins, and he doesn't need to do CrossFit ever. He, is a great example of someone that does not need to live in the high intensity fitness world and is perfectly fine, seeing a ton of progress and a ton of health benefits from, coming in the gym 3 times a week.
Yeah. And I think like when I think about this from a business perspective, because I think if like you're an outside business coach looking up District H, you're probably thinking like, man, you guys are trying to cater to everyone. And I don't think that's the case. I think that the way that I would say like the people who come to District H, what are they looking for? I think they're looking for solutions in predictable ways. When they look at the District H brand, they're like, those guys can help me. Whether it's getting me out of pain, getting me active again, or a great place to be challenged to see where I can take my strength and just overall endurance capacity, whatever it is. But those are the guys that are going to get me there. It's highly likely those are going to be the guys that solve that problem for me. Right. And so while I think a lot of people are like, you need to niche down, I think our niche is solution oriented. They don't want to do it on their own. They want to do it with someone like alongside us or us do it for them. Right. They really value our time and they value our expertise. Like that's what I would sum up our customer. Right.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think you and I talked about this last week, but we have a lot of parents and their time is very valuable. And I don't want to, automated is not the right word, but for simplicity's sake, we have kind of automated their day in terms of their fitness, where it's just like they come in, they get the work done. We're operating in a GPP aspect. We're not necessarily trying to make Usain Bolt level sprinters. Right. We're just trying to keep them as healthy as possible. Right.
Which kind of gets me back to mission, vision, core values of District H. Like for us, like I want us to be a coaching gym versus a training gym, meaning if you come to us, what is the best way for us to meet you where you're at and give you the highest likelihood of getting exactly what you want? In order to do that, right, you and I need to be doing things like qualifying if we're even the right people to be doing that. Some people literally need medical intervention, like, hey, like, or a dietitian, or like, I can't help you, right? Like this is beyond my scope. Mental health experts, things like that. then we need to like have a consultation. Like, okay, if I believe I can help you, what is the best way to help you? And that has to be a conversation, because sometimes it's not as simple as like, well, I want to lose weight. Well, everyone wants to lose weight, right? Like, but let's go a couple layers deeper and figure out what's preventing you from being able to do that on your own. And how do I create a solution for you that will give you exactly what you want, to your point, least effective dose and best return on your time and money.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely.
You and I have probably worked with people that have spent thousands of dollars on a large group membership and never used it or came, versus the person that spent thousands of dollars in 3 months but got life-changing results with us. Very different, right?
Very different.
So how do we create how do we create probable outcomes, not possible outcomes for people? Do you want to speak a little bit about some of the different types of clients that you've had the privilege of training at District H, and where your mind went with in terms of like, what's the right solution for these people in time? Because I think it's going to give listeners a better understanding of like, oh, I didn't know District H could solve those types of problems, or I didn't know that I could walk in and be able to be catered to in that way. So like, let's just start with like maybe your most interesting case, like in a one-on-one environment. What are some of the problems you've had to solve, and why was that the best solution for them at the time?
Another really good question. So, you know, I could talk about Brad all the time, because he's just like a case study in like, how can we work really well with a specific person? But we'll even step back and talk about like Michael Shopoff.
Yeah.
He is another great client where he was in large group for who knows how long. And he started getting some foot pain that was derived from a nerve impingement. And I can't remember, it's called like CRPS, chronic regional pain syndrome. Very, very niche problem that there's really no answers to. And you and him came to an agreement, and I started working with him. And he's one of those people where it's like, squatting's not the best answer for him. And yes, we want people to squat. It's like one of those 7 primal movement patterns. But for him, any sort of squatting caused a ton of pain in his foot that could possibly cause him pain for days after. And that's just not productive use of his time. So instead, we did single leg Bulgarian split squats, which everybody and their mother hates. But for him, it was literally the only solution we could possibly get. And I had to completely change training styles, because I normally standardize my warm-ups and standardize a lot of movement patterns where it's like, we're going to squat today, or we're going to bench press today. And moving through those problems, you have to find solutions for a specific person. Michael is one of those individuals where the normal standardized solutions I would come up with were just not going to work.
Yeah. Yeah. And so like someone like Michael that had a very specific problem you're trying to solve, like specific problems require specific interventions, right?
Correct.
And so, and plus on top of that, like you guys had to work in a very controlled environment. You're controlling all the variables of that session, right? Not to say like someone like Michael doesn't have the ability to be successful in large group again, just in that season of life, we had to pull a different tool out of the toolbox.
100%.
So now what I have learned over time with District H2 is like, we were getting a lot of those people knocking on our door. Like first they all went to Dustin, and then thank God you reached out to me and I said, cool, I can give it to Chris now, because Chris has the skill set to do this. But like, what about like, okay, once we've solved that problem and we get them back to like building capacity, then my mind went to like, okay, like, they don't necessarily need one-on-one intervention anymore. They could be successful in a small group setting, or even going straight into a large group setting. So I think about Gus, or even what's a couple other clients that you worked with that
Went to semi-private.
we started out one-on-one and then went to semi-private.
So Gus went to semi-private, or was one-on-one, went to semi-private. Jessica Feinstein was also OG one-on-one, went to semi-private. Those two didn't necessarily have specific problems. It was just, I need to work with someone to gain some confidence back and then step it up, because for either financial reasons or whatever, they're just like, I can't continue with the one-on-one.
Right.
And then perfect timing when you came up with the idea for semi-private to then push them in that direction, because it solved not only one of those kind of barriers for some people, a financial need, but also increasing their amount of times in the gym, because there is kind of that point of diminishing return. And Jessica and Gus were prime candidates to go to semi-private, because they don't need to have me hold their hand. They just need to have a little bit of autonomy while being in the constraints of having a coach watch them.
But it's amazing, like you also brought up, like there wasn't a specific problem they had to solve, but it's also equally important that put them in an environment where there's high accountability. They're learning how to do things the right way. Like if you and I were trying to learn a skill that we really cared about, you and I would fork out a lot of money to do one-on-one. Like, give me exactly what I need to get 100%. Me from A to B as quickly as possible. But to your point, Like, how long were you working one-on-one with Jessica? Like, how many months it ended up being? Like,
I don't know, probably beginning of December. So end of my first month until maybe mid-April, which is maybe like a couple weeks into semi-private's inception.
Yeah. So if you were to tell the listeners, like, semi-private, where do you feel like it fits best in like someone's journey, or where they're at? Like, how would you sum it up? What kind of people are best qualified for semi-private?
I would say best qualified people are those that find the free-for-all of a large group session way too intimidating. So they just want a little bit more one-on-one intention while also keeping their maximum intensity down. Because a large group session, you're going to be like borderline redlining for probably 10 to 15 minutes of that. And that in and of itself can be very overwhelming for a vast majority, at least in my experience now. I'm just like, I don't realize or didn't realize how overwhelming that experience could possibly be. So people that kind of want to bridge that gap between intensity and just kind of being babysat, again, using that term loosely, is the perfect kind of bridging to put semi-private clients in.
As we've gone through this evolution, like what I want my audience, like especially people who've been with me for over a decade, what I want you guys to know is like the intention of it was never to completely like get rid of or neglect large group, which was what we're going to talk about now. It's more of, I think, through observation and just, you know, I've been doing all of the sales consultations for years, and to sit down with someone and they're like, hey, I want to change my life. I'm like, we can do that. And then to put them into an environment where it didn't work, I don't want to say like I take it personally, but I'm like, man, where did I fail this person? And instead of me getting frustrated, it's like, how can I create different solutions? Which is kind of like what you and I have been talking about for like the past 10 minutes. But now let's talk about large group. So these are like bread and butter clients. Still the vast majority of our clients fall into large group. And my even thought process on large group training has evolved over time, but like, again, kind of like similar question, like you've coached a lot of large groups, especially when you first got started. Like, where do you see that? Who does that fit well? Like who's the type of person that would work really well for in terms of where they're at on their journey?
That is for people that are just in a different, it's just kind of funny to think about this, but it's like a different phase of their life where they're coming from like a sports specific background where they want to do some weight training. Maybe they have some neurodivergent tendencies like me. I just get bored with training very, very easily. So it's just like, I love variety. And then people that are able to pick up skills very quickly. Because when you come into a scenario where you're doing like power cleans or power snatches, those are very complex movements. And kind of touching on the semi-private aspect again, that is a movement that takes a tremendous amount of time and patience to move through successfully. Yeah. And then in a workout, and Dustin doesn't program like this, and I think the three of us, Dustin, you and myself, would probably just be trembling with anxiety coaching an Isabel because just it's not productive for the vast majority of people, but for people that, you know, have a history of weightlifting or possibly sport background, they could jump into that environment, pick it up fairly quickly, and thrive in that environment.
Yeah. And so like, and you and I will get into this in another episode in terms of like how we think about the client journey and like their phase through it. But for our large group sessions, it's very much meant to be like, guys, like this is, I don't want to say it's the end of the journey, but this is the place where like, you get to maximize physical expression in terms of what we think is important, right? Like to your point, we're not going to do hero wads or like girl workouts all the time, but like, we're going to push the intensity without complexity.
Yes.
Right? Like we're still going to be challenging. Like you're still going to you're going to get as strong as you possibly, as you want to within an hour. Right. But like, we'll talk about the client journey in a different episode, but that's kind of like a brief overview on like how we think about the evolution of District H and why we've made certain decisions the way that we've done. And maybe for a lot of our listeners or even our own members who have wondered why this is happening, we've kind of been able to connect those dots for you a little bit better. And for anyone who's interested in like, hey, is District H the right fit for me? Maybe one of Chris's stories spoke to you and you said, hey, like that is an environment like I can be highly successful in, right? Because it breaks my heart when people are like, yeah, I just don't feel like I can be successful in your facility. I'm like, I think we can, outside of major medical interventions and outside of like anyone that's trying to be an elite level athlete, anything in between, I feel like we could do a pretty good job with for the most part.
I would agree.
How would you sum up our philosophy around like, not the one-on-one is completely individualized. The semi-private training is, I would say, more structured strength and conditioning, functional strength training. Like it's definitely not anywhere near CrossFit. But even our large group sessions have, I wouldn't even call it CrossFit. It's a version of CrossFit. There's some things that we take from it and there's some things that we stay away from. But I would love to hear from you as someone who's coached many more hours than I have in the last year and a half in terms of large group sessions. Like, how would you tell somebody, how would you describe our large group training philosophy?
Another really good question. So I think Dustin's done a very good job of adding things in, chew the meat, spit out the bones is something I've mentioned to a handful of clients. My grandma used to say it. It's like, let's take the most productive thing and use that. And CrossFit, we do really good moving forward and back and up and down. We don't do well going side to side. And Dustin has kind of done a exceptional job of adding that in. Is it necessarily the sexiest training? No, but it is 100% needed. Again, catering to a lot of parents, a lot of people that are coaching their kids' baseball teams or soccer teams or whatever. They need to change direction. And when you look at a programming where Dustin programmed like a dead drop into a max vertical jump, you're like, why do I need to do that? Because you need to transfer force very quickly, safely. All right. And if you can't do that because, you're only squatting or you're only lunging or you're only bench pressing or you're only power cleaning, you're not going to be able to absorb those loads. And that is, I think, one of the biggest differentiators with our large group is Dustin adding in like just side shuffles. It's like do a 100-meter side shuffle and you're gonna be like, I didn't know my hips could hurt that way. And it's just, I think, kind of a great, unique experience to add those things in so that you can actually function better in your daily life, which is our entire philosophy, where it's like, let's play with our kids, let's play with our dogs, let's be healthy going into our older age. I think that kind of sums it up.
Yeah. And what's been interesting is like, if we go back to like CrossFit level 1, right? Like the 10 physical traits, right? I think the thing that I've kind of thought about over the years is CrossFit, they prioritize each equally. That makes sense? And in my mind, I'm like, no, I think if I have 1 hour of time with somebody and what's the minimum effective dose to give them the highest quality of life outside the gym, I think certain traits of the 10 need to be prioritized over the others. Priority was the word I was looking for. So like we focus a lot more on structured strength. Like strength shouldn't be random. Like it shouldn't be this like, hopper type of thing. It's like, no, like let's actually make you, I don't want to say like, the strongest you're ever going to be because that takes volume, but like we're able to build it quickly because we do have structure. We're able to build, multiplanar movement, whether it's rotation, lateral, whatever it is, as quickly as possible because we are doing it every single week. We are able to build power in a safe environment that's not complex. You and I don't need to break down a snatch to get people to use hip extension. It's like you can do a broad jump. You can do, the depth drop jump you were talking about. Like those kinds of things are ways that we could develop skills in a safe environment, minimum effective dose, right? Risk and return, thinking about what's the least likely to get people injured and coming back. Because our population is so unique of people who are busy, like at the end of the day, there has to be consistency. I need these people to be fresh to come in here 3 to 5 times a week.
Definitely.
And we can't just punish them every single day, right? So, and then the last thing I wanted to talk with you about our big evolution was like thinking about the other 23 hours of the day, like a more holistic approach to this whole thing that we're trying to do with people, which like to my listeners, right? If we zoom out at the end of the day, when I think about what does success look like for my business, it's like I have a gym full of members who are thriving in their life. And thriving means like you feel like you are capable of doing your best work in all environments that you're included in, right? Your family, your work, friends, and even at the gym and being able to perform. But what's funny is like most of the time, the limiting factor for most people to achieve that goal has nothing to do with the hour they spend with us. Do you want to speak to that a little bit about like not... Because you have a newborn, so you know what sleep deprivation is like. But like, do you want to speak to that a little bit about like how fitness usually isn't the problem for people?
I honestly love this question so much because it's, there's a lot of like sales things that are like, oh, what are you doing in the other 23 hours of your day that I saw months, if not years ago?
Yeah.
And I think about that question all the time. Like, what am I using the other 23 hours of my day for if I take an hour to work out? Well, 2.5 hours of that for me is commuting. All right. So I'm down to 3.5 hours of my day gone. I sleep between 6 and 7 hours of the day. So that's 10.5 hours. And what am I doing the other 8? at least 6 to 7 of those are coaching. And now I'm down to like 2, I think, at that point.
Yes.
So I don't know, like I'm maybe getting some active life in, but most likely watching Ellie or, trying to make some food for Alyssa and myself. So the time goes very quick. And it's like, what can I do to, for my own sake, prioritize movement, live a healthy life? Go for a walk with Ellie, take her outside, take the dog outside, just go start moving, prioritize something that just kind of you can do and make that part of your life. Because if your life is, I get home and I'm exhausted, that's the example you're setting for your children. And as a new parent, maybe I am coming across borderline slightly aggressive, but it's what your children see is going to be a reflection of what they do. And if they see you being active, they're going to do that. So for me, I want to set Eleanor up for a successful life, being active, set her future children up for a successful life. And it all starts with me.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think like when I was doing a lot of coaching, it was getting frustrating being like, man, why did this like squat progression not change these people's lives? Like, why aren't they just getting it right? And so it's funny how like, no, like then you start getting into nutrition, but then we can't do good nutrition unless we have good stress management. But we really can't have good stress management unless we have good sleep, right? And then we can't really make these changes in our lives if, the story between the ears isn't positive and reaffirming and not these like, like these daily battles with, am I going to be the best version of myself or not? And so the last part of the evolution of us is really thinking about if we're trying to solve problems for people and give them the highest likelihood of succeeding in their life in terms of being able overall health, wellness, and thriving, there has to be a discussion around what are you doing outside the hour you're spending with us.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's where I think I've really seen exponential transformation in people's lives when we're having conversations around like, hey, if you're coming into this session today and you're like, I got 2 hours of sleep, is it the most productive thing to do heavy back squats? Like I've had to think about that. Right. So
yeah, it just goes kind of back to low hanging fruit mentality. It's like, what is going to be the easiest thing to transform my fitness or my stress management in the immediate future?
Yeah. Kind of like last few minutes to wrap this up. So like, obviously the purpose of the evolution of the business is how do I create greater impact in my community? Right? Like I've seen enough people come through the gym and when it doesn't work, I'm just like, why? Everything I've created in the gym has been from asking that question. There's a funnier version of this story. Like Dustin and I sitting in the corner asking like, what the F are we doing? Like that's the funnier version, but usually it's coming from this place of like, like how do I help people better? That's all it's coming from. And then the thing that matters most to me, and maybe you can speak to this just a little bit, is like, I really wanted to create careers for people. Like, you guys, Christy, Bryce, Lexi, Josh, Moral, MJ, you can throw Dustin and I in there too if you want to, but like, you guys are the product. Like, you guys are the solution. Like, I can't help people, or my way of helping people has to go through you guys. Only way I can do that effectively is make sure that I'm creating enough opportunity to where when Chris shows up, Chris is not having to worry about where food's coming from, right? Like he can just be like, no, I give you 100% of my talent right now. Do you want to speak to that a little bit in your history with that?
Yeah, definitely. It's, for personal trainers, I feel like it's one of those industries where, and maybe I'm potentially being a little dramatic, but I think it's like second only to maybe the service and restaurant industry. It's hard to find the right space to work in. Not a lot of gyms are paying a lot. I feel like there's a lot of gyms that, coaches are still making $20 an hour, which is like, you work 40 hours a week. You can't work 40 hours a week like that. It's just constant like mental focus. And the industry standard is moving away from that, but finding a space and, District H was the perfect opportunity. And to be offered an opportunity to, really dive into this and really love, not necessarily love what I'm doing, because I already loved what I was doing, but just, not worry about how am I going to, like pay my rent or whatever. And thankfully I have a great partner, like great wife, but it's just tough. This is a tough industry, and CrossFit kind of, their models were just not effective for trainers. And it was like the way that Two Brain had set things up, it just financially didn't make sense to me, because it's relying on the owner to do the lion's share of the work and be paid the lion's share of the revenue, unless they have someone else running the business. And you can't run a business with two people. It's not feasible. And, you've always said that you're kind of like the brains behind it. And when we've had conversation, I'm like, I'm good being a soldier right now. It's just given me space to put my best foot forward and give clients exactly what they need, and then give you the opportunity to be like, I'm going to dive all in on the business. So it's just, you have to have the right coaches, and you also have to have the right owner, so that this relationship is a mutually like beneficial one.
But I think like the fact that, I don't want to say like we've proven the model, but we have a highly successful model that is doing well. Like I think, not to say like, I want this to be the new standard, but like more just like, cool, it works. Let's go do more of it. Like, let's just see how, because there's coaches approaching me all the time about like, hey, like I don't know how to make this work. And I'm like, look, if you love helping people and you love impacting lives and you wake up every day and you're just a coach. Like when I talk about Lexi, that girl is a coach. She will coach you how to change the oil in your car because she just loves guiding people from A to B. That's just who she is, right? So, but like all you guys are. And so if that's who you are, let me create the opportunity. Like, let me focus on like, I want to say like taking the risk, but like, that's what I love to do. So like, let me do that and then give you guys this stage of being able to like impact lives and let you evolve in that too. Like if you want to go open up your own location one day and do all that, it's like, I love it. Because the more of that we do, we know we're winning.
Absolutely.
More lives we get to impact, more people get to like, wake up every day feeling happy about life and doing their very best work. Right. And then the last part I want to talk about is just longevity in the community and having a stable and profitable business. So like, I think in the past, a lot of people have maybe mistaken me for kind of like being more aggressive on the business side, like, looking at profit, money, stuff like that. And what I want to say to my community is like, guys, like coming from a business background, like you have to have that kind of business in order to be able to make impact. I don't want this thing to be like, hey guys, I'm working my butt off and taking a lot of risks just so that I hope I can run a nonprofit, right? As much as nonprofits have a purpose in this world, like I want us to say like, hey, we're doing a lot of great things. And obviously, hopefully members are seeing how I'm reinvesting a lot of that money back into the community to make this better for everybody. So that very much needs to be a part of it so that District H can continue to be a cornerstone of the community, continues to serve you guys. Like all that's super important to me. Where do you want to see this thing in 5 years? 5 years from now, what's happening in your head? Where would you like to see?
5 years from now, oh my gosh, another really good question that I have.
So you're pushing 40. No.
Yeah, we're pushing 38 or no, 39. We are pushing 40. Yeah. Definitely location 2 is rocking and rolling.
Okay.
We're, if not already have a third location.
Okay.
Clients, like one-on-one clients have been with me for like a year and a half to 2 years at minimum. Cause that's just like breed the trust. I love the trust aspect. It's like, I want to work with this guy for the rest of my life. Those are the clients you want to keep. It's not about like turning people over. If you want to turn them over, get them into small, semi-private, put them in large group because they trust the business model. They trust all the coaches, and just kind of getting more people that want to be coaches bought in and just killing it.
Nice.
Like that's it.
I love it, dude. Let's roll with that. And then kind of setting the expectation for members now, like the way the business looks like right now, like I just want to set the expectation that it's going to continue to evolve. Because the question I'm always going to ask is there a better way to serve my people? Right. And that's constantly going to change, right? I don't want to say like, all of a sudden we're all going to be wearing Fitbits and like, not like that, but you know what I mean? Like if there's a better solution to help people, like I'm always going to be open-minded to it. And if it creates greater impact, greater results for people, that's always the way that we're going to go. So that's it for episode 1. We just, we wanted to make this introduction and kind of just talk about our evolution, give some context around some of the changes that we made. Hopefully, if you're a new listener, you're kind of like, oh, wow, this District H sounds interesting. And if so, you can reach out to us at districthsf.com. And we'll see you next time.